Chapter 6 Longing for the Beach. Billionaire Daddy Novel Square. Mr. Astor, she said, sitting up and turning to look at me. I sat down on the lounge chair next to her and laid back. I was taking full advantage of the moment to make a better impression. Shelby, you can call me Michael. Mr. Astor, I don't know if. Shelby started. Please, I insist, I said before she could finish. All right, she answered with a small smile. I am so sorry if I took your hiding spot. I needed some time to myself, so your intern, Reggie, told me how to get here. You can stay as long as you'd like. Do you mind if I hide out here with you, though? I asked. Shelby laughed lightly. It is your boat, Michael. True, but finders keepers, right? I said, looking over at her and winking. Then, she laughed a real laugh, making me want to say anything to hear her laugh again. It would be nice to have some company. Reggie sent out some lemonade. Would you like some? Shelby asked as she sat up and started filling the 2 glasses. Reggie told me about his run-in with Shelby the night before and how he tried to smooth over my terrible blunder. He made sure he helped her back to her room, and now he was helping her find all the best spots on the ship. He was really going out of his way for Shelby. I couldn't help wondering if the boy had a crush on her. Shelby handed me a glass, and I had to stop myself from staring at her in her bikini. Reggie would be crazy if he didn't have a bit of a crush on Shelby. We sat silently, both sipping our lemonade and enjoying the quiet. So you and Lauren met at NYU? I asked. Yeah, we were roommates during our undergrad. After that, I stayed to get my master's degree in political science. I just graduated, so this trip came at the perfect time. Wow, congratulations. Do you know what you are going to do with your degree yet? I was impressed that Shelby had obtained her master's degree. I had begged Lauren to continue school, even bribing her with a new convertible, but she flat out refused. I was actually accepted into Harvard Law. I will be starting this upcoming fall semester, Shelby answered rather sheepishly. She was unlike Lauren's other friends, most of whom lived off of trust funds. That's really impressive. My father pushed me to get my degrees in finance, but had I chosen for myself, I like to think I would have gone to law school, I said. I don't know if I would have been able to do it, though. It takes a lot of effort and determination to become a lawyer. Shelby sighed a little. I do spend most of my time studying, but one day it will be worth it. I couldn't agree more. That just means you will have to take every second you can before your next semester to relax, I said. That's the idea. It's really why I said yes to Lauren's invitation. I just hope I can find time to relax between everything she has scheduled. I can't really keep up with the partying her friends are used to. Now that you mention it, how is it that you and Lauren became friends? You two don't seem to have very similar interests, I said. Shelby laughed again, and I couldn't help but smile. Lauren and I did spend our free time very differently, but she knew how to get me to get out and have fun. So I guess she really helped me find a balance between school and having a life. It was nice to hear someone talk so positively about Lauren. I hoped that during this trip, if my daughter spent more time with Shelby, I would get to see more of that side of her. The kind side that Lauren often hid in favor of popularity. Well, I'm really glad Lauren invited you to join us. A hint of pink colored Shelby's cheeks and the tip of her nose. She quickly returned to her glass of lemonade, and we sat in companionable silence for a few minutes. So, what do you think of Todd? I asked. It's unlike Lauren to bring a guy to meet me, so the relationship must be important to her. Shelby was taking a long time to respond, so I figured she hadn't heard me. I turned to look at her, and she was looking down, purposely not meeting my eyes. Shelby, are you okay? She ignored my second question and said, he seems to make Lauren very happy. She still refused to meet my gaze as she got to her feet and grabbed her book off of the table. I was confused by the sudden shift in our conversation, and I hoped I hadn't made another blunder. I think I'm going to go back to my room and lay down before the party. Thank you again for sharing your hideout with me, Shelby said. Of course. Please, use it anytime you want. Finally, Shelby looked at me and, with a weak smile, said, I will. I enjoyed talking with you, Michael. I enjoyed talking with you too. I will see you later, I said. She nodded and walked away, clutching her book to her chest. I couldn't help but to watch her as she walked away. There was something different about Shelby that was intriguing. I was not used to women who were beautiful, reserved, and kind. Usually, when a woman I was talking with found out how much money I had, it was all I could do to escape from them. Not being able to find someone genuine was the main reason I never dated anyone long term. There was nothing I hated more than someone trying to get to know me for access to my wealth. Lauren's mother was the first and last woman to fool me into thinking she was someone she wasn't because she wanted me for my money. I closed my eyes and leaned back in the lounge chair. I was positive that the conversation I had with Shelby had been genuine. I got the feeling that there was nothing about her that wasn't 100% genuine. Lost in thought, I didn't hear the footsteps behind me. Oh, hello, sir. I turned to see Reggie standing behind the two lounge chairs, looking confused. Reggie, I need to thank you for looking after Lauren's guests. You really have gone above and beyond what is expected. You are doing a remarkable job. No problem, sir, he said with a sheepish grin. That reminds me to show you those sales reports from last quarter. If you could email Pam, she will get those sent over. Oh, sorry, is there something you need from me? I asked. No, sir, I was just looking for, never mind. I will go get those reports ready. Please excuse me, Reggie said and turned to go. I was confused by the interaction until I looked down at the pitcher of lemonade and, the two glasses. Shelby did say that Reggie sent up the lemonade for her, but he sent her 2 glasses. I realized I had probably intruded on a moment Reggie set up. The thought that Reggie wanted Shelby's attention shouldn't have bothered me, but it did. It bothered me more than I cared to admit. I remained on the lounge chair, replaying my conversation with Shelby over again in my head. Finally, after an hour, I decided it was probably time I rejoined the guests. Lauren was planning a cocktail party for that evening, and I needed to check with the staff that everything was running smoothly. Lauren had ordered an ice sculpture to be made in her image, and she told me she would die of embarrassment if it didn't turn out. I planned to go check it before she could. That way, if there was a problem, I would be the one to deal with it, and Lauren wouldn't get a chance to terrorize my staff. As I exited the dining room on my way to the kitchens, I heard my name being called from the other end of the hall. Mr. Astor, I've been looking for you, Todd said.
Avoid Todd each day. I still attended every planned activity but managed to sneak away and spend some time relaxing. On a few occasions, Reggie would save me from talking to the other members of the group. I'd also had a few decent conversations with Allison, the woman in our group with short black hair. I liked her far better than Megan, who was caught up in impressing Hudson. Megan was one of those people who would put others down to get a laugh. Unfortunately, I had been the subject of too many of her jokes for me to want to get to know her any better. No conversation could match up to the one I had with Lauren's father, Michael. It was also the only conversation I kept thinking about. I had to be careful whenever he was around not to stare too much. Michael usually joined the group for a while but would slip away as soon as he knew he wouldn't be missed. I quickly got dressed in black shorts and a white t-shirt over the top of my bikini. On this trip, I noticed Lauren and the other girls seemed to have a new bikini for every occasion. I was sure they had noticed that I was constantly wearing the same too. However, today was not the day to worry about their judgment because I was finally going to see a dolphin. I practically flew to the dining room where we would be having breakfast before we boarded the catamaran. It was no surprise that I was the first one there. I should have remembered that to Lauren and her friends, on time was actually early. I sat next to one of the windows overlooking the island and placed my breakfast order. Each meal was prepared by a private chef, who made the best food I had ever tasted. The waiter brought over my latte while I waited for my lobster frittata. I sipped at my drink and watched the tropical birds flying over the ocean. Michael filled the chair across from me, breaking my trance. I looked over and smiled at him. "Good morning, Shelby," Michael said, returning my smile. My stomach did a small flip as his eyes met mine. "Good morning," I said, glad that I had picked one of the smaller tables that only had room for two. "This has got to be my favorite place to stop. It is a quiet little island between Florida and the Bahamas. The locals are amazing, and the restaurants are to die for. It is absolutely beautiful," I said wistfully. "So, what does Lauren have planned for you today?" Michael asked. "She has a private catamaran dolphin tour planned," I said, and my tone conveyed how badly I was looking forward to it. "Oh, that will be an enjoyable day. You seem excited about the dolphins." "I have loved dolphins ever since I was little. My parents even bought me a little stuffed animal dolphin that I carried everywhere with me. I named it Dolly," I said and then quickly stopped talking. The memory of the loss of my parents still stung, and I did my best not to talk about it. "Have you ever gotten to see one in real life?" Michael asked me with a slightly amused look on his face, probably imagining me with the little dolphin doll. "No. There is a pod that lives year-round off the coast of Maine where my grandpa lives, but he doesn't get out much. So I never got the chance." I wasn't quite as happy now as I had been before as thoughts of how much I missed my family filled my mind. Michael remained quiet. I hoped he wouldn't ask why my parents never took me. I didn't want to explain about them passing away. However, I was saved when our food arrived, which gave me time to change the subject before he could ask. "You will have to help me spot the dolphins while we are on the catamaran today," I said, hoping to sound innocent. Michael's face fell. "I am afraid I have some business that I really have to attend to. I won't be able to make it." "Oh," I said, trying not to sound disappointed. I had been hoping to spend some more time with him. He was one of the only people here I like to talk to. "I'd love to hear about your first dolphin sighting when you get back, though," he said, running a hand through his hair. "I'll make sure I get some good pictures," I responded with a small smile. I would love the opportunity to speak to him again, and that would be the perfect excuse. Our conversation continued as more members of the group finally turned up. When we finished our meal, Michael excused himself and headed to his private office on the yacht. I was sad to see him go but fought the urge to watch him walk away. Instead, I focused my eyes on the ocean, imagining what it would be like to see a dolphin leap out of the water. Lauren was the last to arrive at breakfast, wearing another glamorous bikini with a matching sheer cover-up. She spent a few minutes sitting near Megan chatting away while she ate. Then, she said the words I'd been waiting for. "The catamaran is waiting." Lauren squealed, lifting her mimosa into the air. With a smile, I hopped up, finally eager to take part in one of the activities. A man dressed in a light blue polo handed me a glass of champagne as we boarded the catamaran. As the captain set sail, I quickly found a spot next to the railing. Lauren and Todd immediately found the net forming a hammock between the two hulls and claimed it for themselves. I drained my glass of champagne and turned my eyes to the ocean, constantly scanning for any movement. The party continued on around me, and Lauren and Todd were getting more and more handsy as the cruise continued. The crew members had turned on music, and the group was dancing, drinking, and enjoying themselves. I kept my focus on the water and tried my best to ignore my ex with his tongue down my friend's throat. I grabbed another glass of champagne as one of the servers walked by and sampled some of the hors d'oeuvres until I accidentally ate a dip that turned out to be caviar. I was not a fan. After a while, I noticed that we'd turned around and were on a reef not far from the yacht. My heart sank as the captain stopped the boat. Hudson and Todd jumped into the water and tried to get the girls to jump in. "Excuse me," I said to get the attention of the man in the blue polo. "Yes, miss. Can I get you another glass of champagne?" he answered. "No, I'm fine, thank you. I was just wondering if you could let me know when we will start looking for the dolphin pod again," I asked. I am sorry, but Miss Lauren was getting bored of looking for the dolphins and ordered the captain to stop so everyone could do some snorkeling and swimming. We can't resume our tour until Miss Lauren gives us the go-ahead. This area is great for snorkeling, though, you can see a lot of wildlife swimming in the coral, he said with a sympathetic smile. I see. Thank you, I said, turning away from the man, trying to keep the tears of disappointment from welling up in my eyes. I had been so close, and the thought of leaving without seeing a single dolphin was heartbreaking. I heard screams of excitement behind me, and I headed to the swim deck and dangled my feet in the water. Todd had convinced Lauren to jump in the water, and he was now kissing her while they were both treading water. He'd never been that romantic when he was dating me. I guess he was too busy cheating on me to show me that kind of attention. I knew I probably should have given up on my hope of seeing a dolphin, but I continued to scan the surrounding water. I noticed a jet ski in the distance, and it came closer and closer to the catamaran. As the rider got closer, I realized it was Michael. He pulled his jet ski next to me. "Hey, are you okay?" "Yeah, we couldn't find the dolphins, though," I tried but failed to keep the disappointment out of my voice. "Really?" Michael said, watching me closely. "No, everyone was getting bored of looking, so Lauren had the captain stop so we could snorkel over the reef," I said while I watched my feet kick back and forth in the water. I looked over at the group all swimming on the reef and noticed Todd watching our interaction closely. "I bet we could find them. There's a cove not far from here that I know the dolphins have been spotted in before. We could ride over there together." I looked up at him with a bit of hope in my eyes. "Are you sure?" I asked, shocked at his offer. Chapter 8. We took off, and I had to grab around his waist to stay on the jet ski. I nearly jumped when his skin met mine. It was only then that I realized that Michael was shirtless. I instinctually wanted to slide closer to him, to press my body against his muscular back. I constantly had to work to fight that urge. "He is your friend's dad," I screamed at myself internally. I switched my attention back to the water. The water was crystal clear and calm. Looking off the side of the jet ski, I could see to the bottom in some places. We passed over colorful sea life that was so captivating that it almost took my mind off of Michael's muscular back. Almost. There is a cove just up here where the dolphins are known to spend time. A boat would have a hard time getting back there, especially one the size of the catamaran, but this jet ski will be a perfect fit, Michael yelled over the sound of the running jet ski. "I can't thank you enough for trying to help me. It really means a lot." We continued at a fast pace in the direction of the cove until we got close enough that I could see the narrow inlet. Michael slowed the jet ski, and we coasted into the cove. The circular cove was surrounded on all sides by beaches that eased into cliff faces. The cove was completely cut off from everything. I understood why the dolphins would find this place appealing. Michael cut the engine, and the sound of the waves crashing against the shore took over. "I have never seen anything like this," I said, staring around. "The water is so blue. I stumbled upon it when I was a teenager. My dad was teaching me how to sail. He thought the best way for me to learn was to figure it out by myself." Michael chuckled under his breath. "He sent me out on a small sailboat all alone, and I got caught in a current and pushed in here," Michael said, a bit more seriously. "That must have been terrifying," I said. "It was. I sat on the boat for a long time, using every curse word I knew, and aimed them all at my father. After that, my anger started to turn to panic. I had no idea how I was going to get back or if anyone would be able to find me in this cove. Then I noticed the water rippling next to me, he said. It was a big group of dolphins, and I watched them play in their family unit and forgot about myself and my problems with my father. After they swam away, I was calm enough to figure out how to get myself back to the dock, Michael said, staring into the water. That is an amazing story, I said, watching the creases on his brow relax. It seemed as though the memory was very bittersweet for him. It was a big turning point for me. I watched my parents be unhappy with each other for years, and their unhappiness trickled down to how they treated me, he said with a sigh. The dolphins seemed so happy and were so in tune with each other. I swore to myself I would have a different kind of marriage and family life than my parents did. We sat quietly for a long time, the sound of the soft waves lapping against the side of the jet ski. I found myself still pressed against him, though I let my arms drop. I caught myself constantly looking at him. It was undeniable at this point, I wanted Michael. I couldn't help but wonder if that is why he wasn't with Lauren's mother, but I didn't dare ask. My parents tried to take me to see dolphins in the wild. They planned an amazing trip for my 16th birthday. They were going to take me to San Diego, and we were going to stay in this cute little beach house. But you didn't get to go? Michael asked. They were going to surprise me with it, but they never got the chance. They got in a head-on collision with a drunk driver on their way home from picking up takeout. I found the tickets and travel plans in an envelope in my mom's nightstand, I said. I felt comfortable sharing part of my past after Michael was so open with me. A very small number of people knew about my parents' passing, but I felt safe with him. Shelby, I am so sorry, Michael said and then paused, clearly not knowing what to say. Thank you. It was a few years ago, but I still miss them every day, I said. The silence returned as I continued to scan the water. Michael, look. I nearly threw myself backward off of the jet ski because I saw a ripple of green-gray under the water. It looks like you are going to get your wish, Shelby, he said with a huge smile on his face. It seemed as though he was enjoying my excitement more than watching the dolphins. A large pod had entered the cove and was swimming all around the jet ski. The water was so clear that I could see each dolphin individually. Some were playing a game of chase with each other. There were mamas with their babies swimming close to them. Others were even brave enough to come close to the jet ski, investigating what we were. They are common bottlenose dolphins. Oh, look over there, Michael. I squealed in delight as two younger dolphins that were racing each other jumped out of the water. I so badly want to get in and swim with them, but I am afraid it will scare them away, I said. Their beauty is best observed from a distance. If you try to move too fast, it can ruin what is happening in the now, he responded quietly. He said it so quietly that I wondered if I wasn't supposed to hear him. We sat and watched the dolphins play for almost an hour until they were ready to go, and they made their way out of the cove. That was the most incredible thing I've seen in my entire life, I said breathlessly. I was thinking the same thing, Michael responded, but he was staring at me. I don't know if I have ever been this happy before. I'm so happy I could kiss you. The words escaped my mouth before I could stop them. Michael laughed. Don't get my hopes up. I smiled but quickly looked away. I must have been blushing scarlet. Michael kindly gave me a few minutes to recover and for my face to stop burning. Would it be horrible if I said I am not ready to go back and join the rest of the group yet? I asked. Michael laughed loudly. It might be, but I agree with you. He started the engine again, but instead of making his way out of the cove, he took us to the beach at the far end of the cove. He grabbed my hand and helped me down into the water. It was up to my waist when I jumped down, and I waded to the beach while Michael anchored the jet ski. I slipped off my soaking wet cover-up and let my feet sink into the hot sand. The sand clung to my feet and legs as I sat down and rested my weight on my elbows. Michael walked over to join me and stretched out next to me. We sat in silence and let the waves hit our feet. Did you ever go sailing again after what happened when you found the cove? I asked. I didn't sail again for a long time. I resented my dad, so I purposely hated everything he loved. He loved to sail, so I refused to do it, he said with a small smile. That's actually why I started my own business ventures in air travel. Flying always terrified my father, so I picked a business he would have no interest in. But you did sail again, right? I did in my late 20s, only when my dad was out of town. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of thinking he was right, he answered. I laughed lightly with Michael and returned my attention to the cove. I wanted to take a mental picture of everything. I hoped when I looked back on today I would be able to remember exactly how I felt. I don't know how I will ever repay you for such a perfect day, I said. You don't owe me anything. I'm just glad you are enjoying yourself. I will find a way, I said defiantly with a smirk. You are not what I expected, Shelby, he said. I laughed. I hope that's a good thing. Michael slid his hand toward mine and brushed my pinky finger with his. A jolt of hope rushed through me. I wanted to grab his hand but settled for the brief touch of our fingers against each other. It is a very good thing. To be completely honest, I was dreading this trip after Lauren invited all of her friends. But, my time getting to know you has been well worth it, Michael said. I slowly slid my hand away from his after he mentioned Lauren. It was so easy to forget that Michael was Lauren's dad when we were alone together. However, that did not change reality. Was I awful for finding him so irresistible? It's probably best if we head back. We are all having dinner together at one of my favorite restaurants on the island. I think you are going to love it, Michael said while getting to his feet. Do you want to drive the jet ski back? I would be happy to teach you if you'd like, he said with a hint of mischief behind his smile. I slid my cover-up back on. I don't know. I've never driven anything like that before. Are you sure you trust me not to tip us both in the ocean? I said with a shy grin. I trust you. Plus, I'm a strong swimmer, he said with a wink. He reached his hand down to help me to my feet. Before grabbing his hand, I picked up a small pink shell sitting next to me on the beach and slipped it into the pocket of my cover-up. Chapter 9. I could feel his warm breath on the side of my neck, and it sent goosebumps all across my body. I imagined his lips pressing to my neck where his breath was warming. I wondered what his hands would feel like on my body. Shelby. Oh, sorry, what? I said, pulling myself out of my daydream. Are you ready to go? Michael said with a small chuckle. I was glad he was sitting behind me, so he couldn't see my face turn red at what I was just imagining. Yes, I think so, I said with slight hesitation. Don't worry, I'm right here, he assured me. Just take it slow. I eased my thumb on the throttle, and slowly, we started moving. I remained at a snail-like pace until we were completely out of the cove and a bit beyond. Try giving it a bit more gas, Michael said softly next to my ear. I wasn't prepared for my stomach fluttering at Michael's closeness and not thinking clearly, I hit the throttle way too hard. My hand slipped from the throttle, and with a rush of air beneath me, I went sailing through the air. A moment after I hit the ocean, I heard a second splash and knew I'd thrown Michael off of the jet ski, too. As I sank into the water, I began to panic. I couldn't tell which way the surface was. I fought to swim to the surface, disoriented and fighting for air. With a gasp, I emerged from the water and looked around frantically for Michael. He popped out of the water next to me. Michael, I am so sorry. Are you okay? I asked. Michael's mouth broke into a giant smile, and he started laughing. He laughed one of those deep, uncontrollable laughs. He had finally relaxed enough to truly let go. I couldn't help but start laughing too. See, that's why you have to wear the kill cord on your wrist. That way, if you fall off, the jet ski doesn't keep going without you, he said and started swimming over to the empty jet ski. I started swimming after him and watched him as he pulled himself back onto the jet ski. His back muscles flexed as he got back on, and the water droplets dripping down his body emphasized the definition between each muscle. I couldn't help but imagine running my hands down his back as he hovered over the top of me. Michael reached his hand down to pull me back on the watercraft, and I had to catch my imagination before I let it wander off too far. He pulled me up effortlessly, and I sat down behind him. I think I'm going to let you drive us back now. Are you sure you don't want to take the reins again? He said, gesturing to the handlebars. I think it will be safer if I let you take over. It seems like I only have 2 speeds, I said with a small chuckle. Fine, but we're going to have you driving one of these like a pro before this vacation is over, Michael said with a small smile. I wrapped my arms around his waist, and he set off. As Michael drove us, I replayed watching the dolphins swim in the cove. I was so distracted that it wasn't until he stopped the jet ski that I realized he hadn't gone back to the same dock where the yacht was waiting for us. Instead, we were at the edge of a small coastal town, where each side of the streets was lined with the glowing lights of shops and restaurants. Oh, I thought we would go back to the yacht before dinner. I can't exactly go to dinner dressed like this, I said, gesturing to my now see-through cover-up and visible bikini top. Michael looked me up and down and smiled. I don't think you would hear many complaints, but don't worry, we can stop at one of the shops and get you something dry. My heart sank. I had very limited funds, and getting new clothes was definitely not in my budget. Not wanting to admit this, I nodded my head and followed Michael down the street. I'd have to pay him back because I hadn't brought any money with me. Michael led the way into a boutique called Amore Belle, and I could already tell from the window displays that the store was way out of my price range. The smell of fresh lavender drifted out through the door as soon as it opened. The walls and floors were the brightest white, so all of the customers' attention was drawn to the glamorous dresses hanging on the racks. I felt so out of place in my simple, and very wet, clothes. I prayed that I would not drip on their floors. Well, hello darling, welcome back, said a saleswoman as she came to greet us. She had blonde hair pulled back into a low bun, and she smiled at Michael, clearly recognizing him. Jane, it is good to see you still work here. This is Shelby, Michael said. I need you to help her find some new outfits. As you can see, we need to get her out of these wet clothes. Anything for you. I already have some great pieces in mind that will go perfectly with her hair. I will go get you a room started, hun, Jane said and walked away. I am going to head over to the men's store next door, but I think you should try this one, he said as he grabbed a cocktail dress in a deep midnight blue and handed it to me. Your room is right this way, Jane said and gestured for me to follow her. I'll see you soon, Michael said and turned to leave, but before walking out the door, he stopped to talk to one of the other women on the sales floor. She immediately started gathering dresses off of the racks. I walked around the corner, and there was a pedestal in the middle of the room surrounded by mirrors and changing room doors. I'd watched TV shows where women tried on wedding dresses in a setting similar to this, but I never imagined myself in a place like this. I put some things for you to try in the first room on the right, Shelby. Can I get you anything? Champagne, the woman asked. That sounds lovely, I said while I tried to hide my shaking hands. I turned and shut the door of my changing room as soon as the saleswoman was out of sight. The changing room was already lined with outfits for me to try on. I took a deep breath before looking at the price tag on the dress Michael had handed me. I could have cried and probably would have had it not been for a soft knock on the door. I opened the door, and the saleswoman Michael spoke to before leaving was standing there, with her arms full of elegant dresses. Mr. Astor asked me to make sure you leave in a semi-formal dress. I brought some great options. My name is Mackenzie. I am so sorry I didn't catch your name earlier, she said as she started hanging up the dresses on the hooks in the dressing room. She had dark brown hair braided neatly. My name is Shelby, I answered. I considered running out the door and waiting by the jet ski until Michael returned, but knew I would have to explain eventually. Well, Shelby, please let me know if you need anything. Actually, Mackenzie, I have something to confess, I say nervously. Mackenzie looked confused but let me continue. Everything in this dressing room is way out of my price range. Honestly, I probably couldn't afford a pair of underwear. Mackenzie smiled and giggled a little. My face dropped. I could not believe she was laughing at me for being broke. I am so sorry, Shelby. I am not laughing at you. I totally understand your concern. I just figured you already knew. You don't have to be able to afford anything here. What do you mean? I ask, still confused. Michael already has everything covered. He told me I am not allowed to let you leave this store until you have found a dress and at least 10 new outfits, Mackenzie said, amused with the shocked look on my face. I can't possibly go along with this, I said, my voice cracking. You have to, Shelby. If you don't, we won't earn any commission. Mackenzie leaned closer and whispered, I can't afford the underwear here either. I was uncomfortable with the idea of Michael spending so much money on me, but I refused to be the reason that these women missed out on a huge commission. I immediately felt better, knowing I had much in common with Mackenzie and possibly Jane. Okay, where do we start? I said with a small sigh of defeat. Let's start with the everyday outfits and move on to the gowns after, she said and then added, oh, we can also spend some time looking at the underwear if you'd like. I knew my face must have turned as red as my hair at that comment, so I quickly busied myself trying on the first top. Within reach. Then, I realized how this must look to these saleswomen, how it would look to anyone. I started to wonder how many other women he's done this for. The saleswomen seemed used to this type of thing. I quickly pushed the thought out of my mind. It didn't matter what this looked like. Michael was just a kind person. Plus, there was no way he would be interested in someone like me. After many outfit changes and finding more new clothes than I'd bought for myself in an entire year, all that was left to pick out was a dress. Mackenzie and Jane had outdone themselves in giving me beautiful options. I tried on every single one and was met with many compliments from the sales team as I modeled them on the platform in the center of the dressing rooms. Jane refilled my glass of champagne and asked, have you decided which one you want to go with? I have one more left to try on before I decide, I said and slipped back into the changing room. As soon as I put on Michael's choice, I knew it was the one I would be wearing out. The midnight blue silk slid over every curve of my body like it was molded specifically for me. The dress brushed the floor, but a slit up one side made it easy to move in. Chapter 10 Longing for the Beach Billionaire Daddy Novel Square. The saleswomen Jane and Mackenzie wouldn't let me look at the price tags on anything, but as they were ringing up my picks, I caught a glimpse of the total on the computer screen. I didn't know how I would ever be able to pay Michael back for this shopping trip. I also couldn't help but wonder how often he did this for women. Jane, who'd worked at the shop the longest, had recognized him when we walked in the door. I didn't have time to contemplate this because I noticed a maid I recognized from the yacht. She made her way to me and started relieving me of my bags. I made sure to keep the bag with my dress and shoes for the evening. Miss Shelby, I was told to take these to your room on the ship while you were at your appointment, the maid told me. What appointment? I asked her, confused. You have an appointment at the salon 3 stores up, she said. Did Michael set this up for me? I asked. Yes, miss, the maid said with a smile. I was glad that the boutique I'd been shopping in had a shower where I was able to rinse off before this appointment. They must have been used to sandy beachgoers coming in right before a night out. I made my way up the street and stopped at the salon with floor-to-ceiling glass windows. From the outside, I could see the row of chairs, each in front of its own mirror. I walked in, and the man at the front desk assured me that I did, in fact, have an appointment, full hair, and makeup, which was all The receptionist walked me back to my stylist, an attractive man whose hair color matched mine. What do you have in mind today, sweetheart? My stylist asked me. I'm honestly not sure. Can I leave it up to you? I asked. That is my favorite request, he said as he ran his fingers through my hair. Your natural coloring is gorgeous, obviously, so I am not going to touch that. So, I'm thinking a quick trim and a classic blowout. He had my hair and makeup done within an hour, and I barely recognized myself in the mirror. I was amazed that my hair was perfectly smooth. There was not a single strand of frizz to be found. I gently ran my fingers through my hair and couldn't believe how soft it was. What do you think? The stylist asked me. He handed me a small mirror and turned me in the chair so I could get a better view of the back of my hair. Is this really my hair? I asked, holding up the smaller mirror. Of course, sweetheart. You look amazing, he said with a smile. I didn't know I could love my hair this much. But, truthfully, I have always been self-conscious about it. I got teased a lot when I was younger because of it, I admitted. I know the feeling. Now, you have a chance to go prove all those bullies wrong. So, go enjoy it, he said with a huge smile. I will. I love it. Thank you so much, I said enthusiastically. I walked out of the salon's front door in my midnight blue silk dress with shining hair, and I felt amazing. For the first time since the breakup, I felt like I could do a whole lot better than Todd. All I can say is wow, said Michael. He had been waiting for me outside of the salon. I hardly recognize myself, I said with a laugh. I wasn't commenting on the dress or your hair. I was impressed by your confidence. It looks good on you, Michael said, looking me up and down unabashedly. I felt my cheeks flush again. I didn't understand how Michael always said exactly what I needed to hear. But, I do have to admit I was right about the dress. It does look amazing on you, Michael said with a wink. I don't know how to do, but Michael cut me off before I could finish thanking him. Please, you don't need to finish what you were about to say. You deserved it. It's as simple as that. Okay, I said with a smile. Well, then I just want you to know that today has been the best I have had in a long time. I liked that he was not the kind of man who gave gifts because he liked the praise that followed. The restaurant is just a few blocks over. I can call for a ride, he said, pulling out his phone. Yeah, we could get a ride over, I said and grabbed his phone. But, it's such a beautiful night, why don't we walk? It was a beautiful night, but if I was being honest with myself, I wanted to walk to soak up as much time alone with Michael as I could. Michael smiled and offered me his arm. I wondered if that is where Reggie learned that move. I took Michael's arm and noticed his new suit jacket went perfectly with my new dress. I bit my lip to keep myself from asking if he picked it on purpose, but I secretly hoped he had. This town is beautiful. I'm surprised that it isn't busier, I said, looking up at the bistro lights strung across the streets in a zigzag pattern. The light was just barely fading, and the cool breeze caught the slit in my dress, making the end lightly flutter around my ankles as we walked. It is a well-kept secret, Michael said. For the rich and famous? I asked. Yes, but the locals who live here are what make this place so amazing. The restaurant we are headed to has some of the best food I have ever eaten. But the chef is just a local man who perfected his art form. He never went to culinary school, he just cooked because he loved it. How do you know all that about him? I asked. My family has vacationed here for as long as I can remember. When I got tired of listening to my parents argue, I would go exploring the island. I have gotten to know a lot of the locals over the years, he explained. We walked up to a building with a large illuminated sign reading, "The Coastal Hibiscus." The restaurant had a large deck area with a perfect view of the ocean. As we made our way up the front steps, I dropped my hand from Michael's arm, not wanting Lauren to get the wrong idea. We were the last to arrive at the restaurant, so the entire party was already seated. As soon as we walked in, the conversation slowed, and Todd's eyes locked on me. I got a little sense of satisfaction from the look on his face. Only 2 seats were left, so I sat between Allison and Hudson. Michael took a seat directly across from me, next to his daughter. I love that dress on you, by the way. It's perfect with your coloring, Allison said with a little smile. Thanks, I said as the waiter brought around menus. Where did you take off to? I haven't seen you since you went with Lauren's dad to find the dolphins. Oh, we never found them, so we just drove around for a long time looking for them, I lied, staring intently at the menu. I didn't want to share the details of the intimate day I'd spent with Michael. That's too bad, Allison said and then joined in the group's conversation about where everyone was planning on wintering that year. I continued to look at my menu, overwhelmed by the number of choices. Finally, I looked up to see Michael staring at me. I silently mouthed, "What should I get?" Across the table. He smiled at me and mouthed back, "The lobster thermidor." When the food finally came, I was so glad I'd asked Michael. His choice was amazing. The lobster was cooked so well that it felt like it melted in my mouth. I sat peacefully sipping a glass of wine and listening to the group's conversation, every once in a while sneaking a glance at Michael. The waiter brought around dessert menus, and I ordered a slice of cheesecake, one of my favorites. A few minutes later, the waiter set a piece of cheesecake in front of me, and placed delicately in the whipped cream was a stunning cushion-cut diamond engagement ring. My breath caught in my throat, and I felt my heart stop. As I was trying to make sense of what was happening, I heard Todd whisper angrily to the waiter, "No, not her." No one seemed to have noticed the mix-up, and a few seconds later, the engagement ring cheesecake was placed in front of Lauren instead. Her small squeak alerted the rest of the table to what was going on. "Lauren, will you make me the luckiest man in the world? Will you marry me?" Todd said, down on one knee next to Lauren. "Of course, I will," Lauren immediately answered. She jumped up and hugged Todd, all the while letting out ear-piercing squeals. I looked across the table and saw Michael's eyes locked on me. Had he seen them place the ring in front of me and my reaction to it? The restaurant felt like it was closing in around me. I had to get out. I quietly slid my chair away from the table, leaving my ringless cheesecake untouched, and walked out into the open air. I started walking toward the ocean. The water had turned from a vibrant blue to an ominous black. The glassy surface reflected the light of the moon, which sat alone in the sea of darkness. I continued walking, my feet aching in the heels, but to my relief, I recognized the yacht docked in a nearby marina. The crew must have sailed over to this marina to drop off the rest of the group while Michael and I were in the shops. So I made my way towards it. However, even before I reached the docks, the tears had already started falling down my face. I wiped them away quickly, not wanting to stain my new dress.